They built vast cities, shaped entire landscapes, and ruled mighty kingdoms. Yet history barely remembers them. Long before Europeans arrived, advanced civilizations thrived across America, then mysteriously vanished. Who were they? What secrets did they leave behind? And why has no one told their story? From towering mounds to lost warrior tribes, this is the hidden history you were never meant to forget. Stay with me, because what you're about to hear will change everything you thought you knew about America's past. The Cahokia civilization, America's forgotten ancient metropolis. Long before the arrival of European settlers, a vast and sophisticated civilization flourished in what is now the American Midwest. Cahokia, located near present-day St. Louis, was the largest pre-Columbian city north of Mexico, reaching its peak around 1050 to 1200 AD. This thriving metropolis was home to an estimated 20,000 people, rivaling some of the great medieval cities of Europe at the time. Despite its size and influence, Cahokia remains largely absent from mainstream historical narratives, overshadowed by the more famous civilizations of Central and South America. Its disappearance remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries of North American history. At the heart of Cahokia was Monk's Mound, a massive earthen pyramid rising nearly 100 feet high, dominating the landscape. This structure, the largest of its kind in North America, was a testament to the engineering skills of the Cahokians, who moved millions of cubic feet of soil to shape their city. Surrounding Monk's Mound were numerous smaller mounds, plazas, and a carefully designed urban grid, indicating a complex and organized society. The city was divided into different districts, with some areas dedicated to elite residences, religious ceremonies, and large communal gatherings. Cahokia also featured a wooden structure known as woodhenge, a circular arrangement of timber posts that likely served as an astronomical observatory, aligning with solstices and equinoxes. This suggests that the Cahokians had a deep understanding of celestial movements and may have incorporated them into their religious or agricultural practices. Trade and commerce played a vital role in the city's prosperity. Artifacts found at Cahokia indicate an extensive trade network that stretched across the continent, connecting the civilization with distant regions. Items such as Gulf Coast seashells, Great Lakes copper, and Rocky Mountain obsidian have been discovered in Cahokian sites, proving that they engaged in long-distance exchange. This trade network not only brought material wealth, but also facilitated the exchange of ideas, beliefs, and technologies between different Native American cultures. The social and political structure of Cahokia remains a subject of speculation, but evidence suggests a stratified society led by powerful rulers or a theocratic elite. The presence of large ceremonial mounds and elaborate burial sites indicates that Cahokia's leaders were likely regarded with religious reverence. Some graves have been found with remarkable artifacts, including finely crafted copper plates, marine shell ornaments, and even evidence of human sacrifices, which may have been part of ritualistic practices. These findings suggest that Cahokians had a complex belief system, possibly centered around deities, spirits, or ancestor worship. One of the most perplexing aspects of Cahokia is its sudden decline. By the 14th century, the city had been largely abandoned, with its population dispersing into smaller communities. The reasons for Cahokia's collapse are still debated, but several theories have been proposed. Some scholars suggest that environmental factors played a crucial role. Deforestation, overhunting, and soil depletion could have led to food shortages, making it difficult to sustain the growing population. Others believe that climate changes, particularly the onset of the Little Ice Age, disrupted agriculture and forced people to migrate elsewhere. Additionally, evidence of violence and fortifications suggests that internal conflicts or external threats may have contributed to the downfall of Cahokia. Warfare, political instability, or societal unrest could have fractured the community, leading to its eventual dissolution. Despite its disappearance, the legacy of Cahokia endures in the oral traditions of various Native American tribes and in the archaeological remnants that continue to be studied today. The site of Cahokia Mounds is now a UNESCO World Heritage Site, preserving the remnants of this once great civilization. However, it remains largely unknown to the average American, overshadowed by other ancient cultures such as the Maya or Aztecs. Unlike those civilizations, Cahokia left no written records, making it more challenging to piece together its history. What we know comes from excavations, artifacts, and comparisons with other Mississippian cultures that shared similar customs and technologies. The story of Cahokia challenges the common perception that pre-Columbian North America was sparsely populated and lacking in urban centers. In reality, Cahokia was a bustling, organized city with a vibrant economy, religious life, and political hierarchy. It stands as proof that complex societies existed in North America long before European contact, capable of monumental architecture, intricate trade systems, and sophisticated societal structures. The civilization's rise and fall offer valuable lessons on urban sustainability, resource management, and the impacts of environmental change on human societies. Despite centuries of neglect in mainstream historical narratives, renewed archaeological efforts continue to shed light on Cahokia's rich history. Researchers use modern techniques such as ground-penetrating radar, soil analysis, and 3D reconstructions to better understand the layout and daily life of the city. These efforts aim to give Cahokia the recognition it deserves as one of the most advanced and influential civilizations in ancient North America. Ultimately, the mystery of Cahokia remains unsolved. Its people built a great city, thrived for centuries, and then faded into obscurity, leaving behind only earthen mounds and scattered artifacts. While much about Cahokia is still unknown, one thing is certain: it was a powerful and sophisticated culture that played a crucial role in shaping the history of North America. If more attention is given to its legacy, Cahokia could finally take its place alongside other great civilizations of the ancient world. The Chachapoya, the lost cloud warriors of the Andes high in the mist-shrouded mountains of northern Peru, an enigmatic civilization once thrived, only to be largely forgotten by history. The Chachapoya, known as the Cloud Warriors, inhabited the rugged Andean highlands, carving out a powerful society in one of the most difficult terrains on Earth. Though overshadowed by the Incas, who ultimately conquered them in the 15th century, the Chachapoya left behind remarkable ruins, towering fortresses, and eerie cliffside tombs that hint at their once great civilization. Despite their legacy, much about the Chachapoya remains a mystery, as they had no written language, and much of what we know about them comes from Incan and Spanish accounts. The Chachapoya civilization emerged around 800 AD and lasted until their conquest by the Incas in the late 1400s. Their homeland was the cloud forests of the Andes, a region of steep cliffs, dense vegetation, and high-altitude plateaus. This difficult environment shaped their way of life, making them expert builders, farmers, and warriors. The Chachapoya constructed impressive stone cities and fortresses, many of which still stand today, hidden deep in the Peruvian jungle. Among the most famous is Kuélap, often called the Machu Picchu of the North. Perched on a mountain ridge at nearly 10,000 feet above sea level, Kuélap is a massive walled city with over 400 circular stone structures, some adorned with intricate carvings. Unlike the Incas, who built with finely cut stone blocks, the Chachapoya used large, roughly hewn stones, creating an imposing architectural style unique to their culture. One of the most striking aspects of Chachapoya society was their burial practices. Instead of burying their dead in the ground, they built elaborate sarcophagi and tombs in seemingly impossible locations, on sheer cliff faces and within towering rock formations. The most famous of these are the Cahokia sarcophagi, massive humanoid-shaped coffins standing on a remote limestone cliff. These figures, with their haunting faces and distinctive headgear, were painted in red and white and contained the remains of Chachapoya elite. These burial sites suggest a strong belief in an afterlife and indicate that ancestor worship played a significant role in their spiritual life. Although their culture was highly developed, the Chachapoya were not an empire like the Incas. Instead, they were a collection of semi-independent city-states and chiefdoms that shared a common language, religion, and artistic style. This political fragmentation may have made them vulnerable to outside forces, particularly when the Inca Empire expanded into their territory in the late 15th century. The Chachapoya fiercely resisted Incan domination, fighting prolonged battles in the dense forests and mountains. Despite their courage and military skill, they were eventually defeated and absorbed into the Inca realm, with many Chachapoya warriors forced to serve in the Incan army. However, their struggle for survival did not end with the Inca conquest. When the Spanish arrived in the early 16th century, the Chachapoya saw an opportunity to free themselves from Incan rule. They allied with the Spanish conquistadors, helping them in their campaigns against the Inca Empire. Their knowledge of the land and guerrilla warfare tactics proved invaluable, and they played a crucial role in the downfall of the Incan civilization. Unfortunately, their alliance with the Spanish did not lead to independence. Instead, they were devastated by European diseases such as smallpox, which wiped out much of their population. By the time the Spanish fully established control over Peru, the Chachapoya as a distinct people had all but disappeared. Despite their disappearance, the Chachapoya left behind a rich cultural legacy. Archaeological discoveries continue to reveal new insights into their way of life, including evidence of advanced agricultural techniques. The Chachapoya built extensive terraced fields and irrigation systems, allowing them to cultivate crops such as maize, potatoes, and quinoa in the harsh mountain environment. They also had a deep connection to nature, as seen in their art and textiles, which often depicted animals, mythical beings, and intricate geometric patterns. One of the most intriguing aspects of the Chachapoya is their appearance. Spanish chroniclers described them as having unusually light skin and sometimes even blonde or reddish hair, a stark contrast to other Andean peoples. Some historians speculate that this may have been due to genetic mixing with earlier populations, though there is no definitive evidence to support this theory. These descriptions have fueled speculation and myths about their origins, with some suggesting connections to lost European or Middle Eastern civilizations. However, most scholars believe the Chachapoya were simply a distinct indigenous group with unique physical traits. Today, efforts are being made to preserve and study Chachapoya sites, though many remain unexplored or at risk of destruction. Looting, environmental damage, and lack of funding threaten what remains of their once mighty civilization. Kuélap, while a stunning historical site, still receives only a fraction of the attention that more famous Incan ruins like Machu Picchu enjoy. However, growing interest in forgotten pre-Columbian cultures has sparked new archaeological projects, and researchers continue to uncover hidden aspects of Chachapoya life. The story of the Chachapoya is one of resilience, mystery, and a lost world hidden in the clouds. Their achievements in architecture, warfare, and culture prove that they were far more than just a minor Andean tribe overshadowed by the Incas. They were a civilization in their own right, one that thrived for centuries in one of the most challenging environments on Earth. Though they ultimately succumbed to conquest and disease, their legacy endures in the towering ruins of Kuélap, the haunting cliffside sarcophagi, and the whispers of history that still echo through the cloud forests they once called home. The Mississippian Culture, the forgotten mound builders of North America. Long before European settlers arrived in North America, A vast and complex civilization flourished along the Mississippi River and its tributaries. The Mississippian culture, which emerged around 800 AD and lasted until roughly 1600 AD, was one of the most advanced societies to exist in pre-Columbian North America. Stretching from the Great Lakes to the Gulf of Mexico, this civilization built enormous earthen mounds, established sophisticated trade networks, and developed intricate political and religious systems. At its peak, the Mississippian culture rivaled many of the world's great ancient civilizations in terms of organization and influence. Yet, despite its significance, it remains one of the least recognized cultures in American history. The most famous city of the Mississippian culture was Cahokia, located near present-day St. Louis. This metropolis, which housed an estimated 20,000 people at its height, was the largest city in North America until the 18th century. Cahokia was carefully planned, with residential areas, plazas, and monumental structures, the most notable being Monk's Mound, a massive earthwork nearly 100 feet tall. This sprawling city was not unique. Similar mound cities were scattered throughout the Mississippi Valley, from Moundville in Alabama to Etowah in Georgia and Spiro in Oklahoma. Each of these centers had its own ruling elite, but they were united by shared religious beliefs, trade, and cultural practices. The Mississippians were masterful engineers and builders. Their earthen mounds, some used for ceremonial purposes and others as platforms for elite residences, demonstrate an advanced understanding of construction techniques. These mounds required immense labor, with thousands of workers moving millions of cubic feet of soil using only baskets, wooden tools, and sheer human effort. Some of these mounds served as burial sites, often containing elaborate grave goods such as carved shells, copper ornaments, and finely crafted pottery, indicating a society with social stratification and elite classes. Religion played a central role in Mississippian society. Their belief system was likely centered around the worship of a pantheon of gods, nature spirits, and possibly deified ancestors. The Southeastern Ceremonial Complex, an art and symbolism tradition found across Mississippian sites, includes depictions of warriors, mythical creatures, and the Birdman, a figure associated with power and the afterlife. These religious motifs suggest a highly spiritual society with a strong emphasis on rituals, cosmology, and the afterlife. Ceremonies were likely performed at mound sites, with priests, shamans, or chieftains overseeing sacred rites that reinforce the power of the ruling elite. Agriculture was the backbone of Mississippian life. They cultivated maize as their primary staple, supplemented by beans, squash, sunflowers, and other crops. Their farming techniques allowed for surplus food production, which supported dense populations and facilitated urban development. In addition to farming, they were skilled hunters, fishermen, and gatherers, utilizing rivers and forests to sustain their communities. Trade was extensive, linking Mississippian cities to distant regions. Artifacts such as Gulf Coast shells, Great Lakes copper, and Appalachian mica have been found in Mississippian sites, proving that they engaged in widespread exchange. These goods were likely used not only for trade but also in religious and political ceremonies. The Mississippians had a complex political structure, with chiefdoms led by powerful rulers who controlled vast territories. These leaders, often considered semi-divine, lived atop the largest mounds and wielded authority over religious and economic matters. Their societies were hierarchical, with an elite ruling class, a middle class of artisans and traders, and lower classes consisting of farmers and laborers. Some historians believe that warfare played a significant role in Mississippian politics, as evidenced by palisaded fortifications, weapons, and skeletal remains showing signs of violent encounters. Conflicts may have arisen over territory, resources, or rivalries between competing chiefdoms. Despite their remarkable achievements, the Mississippian culture mysteriously declined by the 16th century. There is no single explanation for their collapse, but several theories have been proposed. One possibility is that environmental degradation, including deforestation and soil depletion, led to agricultural failures and population decline. Climate change, particularly the onset of the Little Ice Age, may have further disrupted food production. Another theory suggests that internal conflicts and social unrest weakened the political structure, making the civilization vulnerable to outside threats. The arrival of European explorers and settlers in the 1500s brought devastating diseases such as smallpox, measles, and influenza, which likely decimated the population before direct European contact was even established. Without strong leadership and a stable population, the Mississippian way of life gradually disappeared, leaving behind only their monumental mounds as silent witnesses to their once thriving civilization. Unlike the Maya or the Aztecs, the Mississippians left no written records, making it difficult to fully understand their culture. Most of what we know comes from archaeological findings and oral traditions passed down by Native American tribes such as the Choctaw, Creek, and Cherokee, who are believed to be descendants of the Mississippians. European explorers who encountered their remnants described abandoned cities and sophisticated societies that had mysteriously faded. Spanish explorers such as Hernando de Soto, who journeyed through the southeastern United States in the 1540s, reported encountering large native towns, some still adhering to Mississippian customs, but within a century, many of these societies had vanished or been absorbed into other groups. Today, efforts are being made to preserve and study Mississippian sites. Places like Cahokia Mounds, Moundville, and Etowah have been recognized as significant historical landmarks, attracting archaeologists and history enthusiasts eager to uncover more about this forgotten civilization. Ground-penetrating radar, advanced excavations, and artifact analysis continue to reveal new insights into Mississippian daily life, governance, and religious practices. However, these sites remain underappreciated compared to more famous ancient civilizations, despite their historical importance. The story of the Mississippian culture is a reminder that North America was home to advanced societies long before European colonization. Their cities, trade networks, and belief systems were as complex as those found in other ancient cultures worldwide. Yet, due to a combination of environmental, social, and external factors, their civilization declined, leaving behind mysteries that continue to captivate historians and archaeologists. The massive mounds they built stand as their legacy, earthly monuments to a forgotten empire that once ruled the heart of North America. The Calusa, the lost kingdom of the fierce. Shell Indians. Long before Florida became a land of tourists and retirees, it was ruled by the powerful and enigmatic Calusa people. Known as the Shell Indians because of their extensive use of seashells in tools, art, and architecture, the Calusa dominated southwest Florida for centuries. Unlike many other Native American cultures, they did not rely on agriculture, but instead built a thriving society based on fishing and maritime skills. The Calusa created vast networks of shell islands, canals, and artificial mounds, constructed imposing wooden structures, and maintained a fierce warrior culture that resisted European conquest longer than most other indigenous groups in the region. Despite their strength, their civilization ultimately faded into obscurity, leaving behind only scattered remnants of their once great kingdom. The Calusa civilization first emerged around 500 AD and reached its peak between the 12th and 16th centuries. Unlike the agricultural societies of the Mississippians or the Puebloans, the Calusa built their empire on the bounty of the sea. Their environment, coastal estuaries, mangrove forests, and barrier islands, provided abundant resources. They became expert fishermen, using nets woven from palm fibers, dugout canoes, and intricate fish weirs to trap vast quantities of fish, which formed the backbone of their diet. They also harvested shellfish, turtles, and even sharks, demonstrating an intimate knowledge of marine ecosystems. Rather than clearing land for farming, they used their skills to manipulate waterways, creating massive shellworks that functioned as living spaces, ceremonial centers, and even defensive structures. One of the most remarkable aspects of Calusa culture was their construction of shell mounds and artificial islands. Instead of relying on stone or clay, they built entire landscapes out of discarded shells, forming massive structures that still exist today. These mounds were used for temples, homes, and burial sites, elevating their settlements above the swampy terrain and protecting them from floods and storms. One of the most famous of these sites is Mound Key, a sprawling island made almost entirely of shells and debris accumulated over centuries of occupation. It was likely the political and religious capital of the Calusa, home to their elite rulers and sacred ceremonies. Archaeological evidence suggests that Mound Key contained a grand wooden temple, large enough to hold thousands of people, a rare achievement for a pre-Columbian North American society. The Calusa were not only engineers but also skilled warriors. Spanish explorers described them as tall, muscular, and heavily tattooed, with an aggressive and independent spirit. Unlike many Native American groups who succumbed to European colonization quickly, the Calusa fiercely resisted foreign intrusion. When the Spanish first encountered them in the early 1500s, they found a people who had already built a formidable kingdom, ruled by a powerful chief known as the Calos, or cacique. The Calusa maintained a complex political hierarchy, with a central ruler overseeing a network of tributary villages and chiefdoms. They demanded tribute from weaker tribes and controlled much of southern Florida through a combination of military dominance and strategic alliances. The first recorded encounter between the Calusa and Europeans occurred in 1513, when Spanish explorer Juan Ponce de León arrived in Florida. Unlike other indigenous groups who initially tried to cooperate with Europeans, the Calusa met them with hostility. They attacked Ponce de León's expedition with war canoes and poisoned arrows, ultimately wounding the explorer, who later died from his injuries. The Spanish made several more attempts to establish a foothold in Calusa territory, but each time they were met with fierce resistance. Even in later decades, when the Spanish tried to convert them to Christianity, the Calusa largely rejected European influence, refusing to abandon their traditional beliefs and way of life. Religion played a central role in Calusa society. They believed in a three-tiered universe, with spirits governing the sky, earth, and underworld. Their rulers were also religious leaders, acting as intermediaries between the people and the gods. Evidence suggests that the Calusa practiced ritual sacrifices and ancestor worship, preserving the bones of their deceased leaders in sacred temples. They also created intricate wooden carvings of religious figures, some of which have been found remarkably well preserved in Florida's waterlogged archaeological sites. These carvings provide a rare glimpse into their spiritual beliefs and artistic achievements. Despite their strength, the Calusa ultimately fell victim to the same forces that devastated many indigenous civilizations: disease, warfare, and European colonization. By the late 1600s, the arrival of European diseases such as smallpox and measles had begun to decimate their population. At the same time, slave raids from northern tribes allied with the British further weakened their society. By the early 1700s, the once mighty Calusa were in decline, their numbers dwindling due to disease, warfare, and displacement. Some survivors fled to Cuba with the Spanish, while others were absorbed into neighboring tribes. By the mid-18th century, the Calusa had vanished as a distinct people, leaving behind only their shell mounds, artifacts, and the stories passed down by other Native American groups. Today, the legacy of the Calusa is still visible in the landscape of southwest Florida. Mound Key, Big Mound City, and other archaeological sites continue to reveal new insights into their remarkable civilization. Researchers have found evidence of their engineering skills, intricate trade networks, and artistic achievements, challenging the outdated notion that Florida's indigenous cultures were primitive or unsophisticated. Despite their importance, the Calusa remain relatively unknown compared to other Native American civilizations, often overshadowed by the Aztecs, Maya, and Mississippians. The story of the Calusa is one of resilience, ingenuity, and resistance. They thrived in an environment that many would consider inhospitable, mastering the sea and shaping the land to their advantage. They stood against European colonization longer than most other indigenous groups, fiercely defending their homeland until their last days. Though they ultimately disappeared, their legacy endures in the shell mounds that still rise above the Florida landscape and in the scattered remnants of their once powerful kingdom. Their story, like that of many lost American cultures, is a reminder of the rich and complex history that existed in North America long before European contact. The Fremont People, the vanished civilization of the American Southwest. In the rugged landscapes of Utah, Nevada, Colorado, and Idaho, an enigmatic ancient people once thrived before mysteriously disappearing. The Fremont People, named after the Fremont River in Utah, where their artifacts were first discovered, lived in the region from around 300 AD to 1300 AD. Unlike the grand cities of the ancestral Puebloans or the vast trading networks of the Mississippians, the Fremont lived in smaller, scattered communities, blending elements of both nomadic and agricultural lifestyles. They left behind petroglyphs, unusual clay figurines, and mysterious pit houses, but much about their way of life remains unknown. When they vanished, they left behind no clear descendants, adding to the mystery of their fate. The Fremont people were highly adaptable, living in diverse environments ranging from arid deserts to fertile river valleys. They were skilled farmers who grew maize, beans, and squash. But unlike their neighbors, they did not rely entirely on agriculture. Instead, they practiced a mixed economy, supplementing their crops with hunting, fishing, and gathering wild plants. This flexibility allowed them to thrive in areas where farming alone might not have been sustainable. Their ability to survive in harsh conditions suggests an intimate knowledge of their environment and resource management. One of the most distinctive aspects of the Fremont culture is their unique approach to housing. Unlike the ancestral Puebloans, who built elaborate cliff dwellings, the Fremont lived in pit houses, semi-subterranean structures built by digging into the ground and covering the top with a wooden frame and mud. These pit houses provided insulation against extreme temperatures, keeping them cool in the summer and warm in the winter. Some Fremont groups also built above-ground stone dwellings, but these were far less common. The Fremont were also known for their remarkable artwork, particularly their petroglyphs and pictographs, which can still be seen on rock faces across Utah and surrounding states. These rock carvings depict humanoid figures with trapezoidal bodies, horned headdresses, and intricate patterns, often surrounded by animals, abstract symbols, or hunting scenes. The meaning of these images is still debated, but they likely held spiritual or ceremonial significance. Some archaeologists believe they may have represented deities, shamanic visions, or mythological stories passed down through generations. These rock art sites, such as those found in Capitol Reef National Park and 9 Mile Canyon, provide some of the most compelling evidence of the Fremont's cultural identity. Another hallmark of the Fremont culture is their distinctive clay figurines. These small, human-shaped figures, often found in burials and ceremonial sites, feature stylized faces, elaborate clothing, and intricate decorations. Some have pierced ears, suggesting they may have worn ornaments or had symbolic importance. The purpose of these figurines is unclear. Some scholars speculate they were religious idols, fertility symbols, or representations of ancestors. The craftsmanship and detail of these artifacts indicate that the Fremont had a rich symbolic and artistic tradition, even if their society was less centralized than others in the region. Trade played a role in Fremont society, though on a smaller scale than in other pre-Columbian civilizations. Archaeologists have found evidence that they exchanged goods with neighboring cultures, including the ancestral Puebloans to the south and the Plains tribes to the east. Shells from the Pacific coast, turquoise, and obsidian from distant regions have been uncovered at Fremont sites, indicating that they participated in long-distance trade networks. However, their interactions with other groups were not always peaceful. Some sites show evidence of defensive structures, suggesting conflicts with neighboring tribes or rival Fremont groups. Despite their resilience and adaptability, the Fremont culture mysteriously declined around 1300 AD. The reasons for their disappearance remain a subject of debate. One theory is that prolonged droughts made agriculture unsustainable, forcing them to abandon their settlements and disperse into smaller, more mobile groups. Another possibility is that they were absorbed or displaced by incoming groups, such as the Ute and Shoshone peoples, who began moving into the region around the same time. There is little evidence of large-scale warfare, but shifting climates, resource depletion, and changing trade dynamics may have contributed to their gradual disappearance. Unlike the ancestral Puebloans, who left behind grand ruins like Mesa Verde and Chaco Canyon, the Fremont left behind few monumental structures, making it even harder to trace their final fate. Today, the legacy of the Fremont people is preserved in the rock art, artifacts, and scattered ruins they left behind. Archaeologists continue to study their sites, uncovering new clues about their way of life and their mysterious disappearance. The Fremont culture challenges the idea that pre-Columbian societies in North America were either nomadic hunters or large-scale agricultural empires, proving instead that many groups developed hybrid lifestyles, adapting to their unique environments in creative ways. The Fremont were not a single, unified civilization, but rather a collection of related groups who shared cultural traits while maintaining local variations. Their story is a reminder that history is not always written by those who build the largest cities or the most powerful empires. Sometimes the most fascinating civilizations are the ones that quietly thrived in the margins, leaving behind only traces of their existence for future generations to rediscover. Their petroglyphs, figurines, and pit houses stand as echoes of a people who once mastered the deserts, mountains, and rivers of the American West before vanishing into legend.